Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to my 3 takeaways episode from the Pamela Fuller interview that I just posted this past Monday. I hope you guys really enjoyed that interview. It's definitely a topic that I haven't really discussed on this podcast yet. It's something that I've needed to discuss, and it's something that has needed to be talked a little bit further about because, of all the situations that's been going on in our world today. It's just a conversation that cannot be had enough. And I want you guys to make sure you go get a copy of The Leader's Guide to Unconscious Bias. You can go to franklincovey.com and you can learn more about Pamela Fuller there. She does some amazing work, and Franklin Covey just in general does some amazing work. I've interviewed 4 of their employees now, and I've never left disappointed. I've always left with feeling just an absurd amount of gratitude for what they're doing and what their work is and what they're trying to do in this world, and how they're trying to change leaders and how they're trying to change workplace cultures, and it's just powerful stuff. So make sure you go back and listen to the interview with Pamela Fuller if you did not yet already. But for now, let's go ahead and dive in to my 3 takeaways. Number 1 is don't let your bias contradict your values. Now, this one was super important for me to hear because a lot of times we can be very reactive in certain situations. And I talked a little bit about that during last 3 takeaways episode with Dr. Austin Perlmutter, because we talked about the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, and this is the same kind of idea. Don't let your bias contradict your personal values, because we talked about a very specific example for her. When she was hiring somebody new, after she hired this girl, the girl asked her, okay, so what's your maternity leave policy because I'm pregnant? And immediately Pamela was like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I'm just hiring you and now you're pregnant and you're leaving on maternity leave. She was very reactive to that because she was realizing that, oh my gosh, like I was getting ready to have this lady I have this new employee who's going to be convenient, and we were going to have a new worker. It's going to be great. And she almost let that get the best of her. Like immediately in her head, she was really upset, and because she wasn't going to have this employee. But then she was able to take the step back and realize, like, wait, I just took maternity leave. This is something that I value. I'm not going to blow up on this girl. I'm not going to get mad at this girl for not saying anything sooner. I'm going to react in a smart way, and I'm going to respond intelligently. So the idea is, a lot of times when something happens in which we have a quick bias towards, we need to recognize when we're having those kinds of emotions. We need to recognize when we're feeling impatient, when we're feeling frustrated, when we're feeling insecure, when we're feeling blindsided like Pamela, and then spend some time thinking, okay, why is that? Because Pamela wasn't reacting because she was mad about maternity leave. She was mad because she wasn't going to have this employee. She was mad because she wasn't going to have the convenience of having this employee do X, Y, and Z for her. And so she was like, okay, I can work around that. There's other things I can do. And that way the bias didn't get in the way of her value of maternity leave for her employees. Takeaway number 2 is create space between stimulus and response. Now, this is something that was made popular by Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning, creating space between stimulus and response. And again, it's something that is so hard to do for our brains because our brains are so reactive. We spend so much time in the amygdala portion of our brain, the reptilian, the old portion of our brain, where we need to take a step back and let our prefrontal cortex, the human part of our brain, the thinking part of our brain, be able to respond intelligently. And so we talked about how can we do this on a day-to-day basis. And she's like, you need to build some vocabulary around pausing in conversations. So when somebody says something that you feel like you might react too quickly to, find a way to implement into your vocabulary, I need to think about that, or can I address that with you tomorrow, or take a deep breath, or whatever it is. Like, find a way to not jump to something really quickly that you might regret saying, and find a way to create space between stimulus and response. And again, that can be by implementing some words into your vocabulary around pausing. For me, I know sometimes it just takes me taking a deep breath and be like, okay, Nick, don't be stupid. Don't say something that you'll regret. Either don't say anything at all, or find a way, like the old saying that your parents would always say, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all. And sometimes you just need that deep breath to remember that and not say anything too reactive that is going to get you in trouble. And then takeaway number 3 is understand the merit of others' values. Now, we talked about this in regards to, she used to think that she held work ethic in the highest regard in regards to the employees that she was going to hire. And then her husband challenged her on this in the sense that he was like, okay, so what do you see as work ethic? Because she was seeing somebody who had a prestigious college degree and studied a prestigious thing and had a good grade point average. When he was like, well, I'm not saying those people aren't working hard, but what about somebody who went through 6 years of community college and had to pay their way through and maybe had to have 2 jobs and maybe had a kid? Like, that to me is work ethic. And she was like, wow, that's pretty true. That's pretty true. And so she had to kind of change what she saw, what she valued in work ethic. And she had changed what that thought process was for herself. And then she also has an employee who identifies as literally being unambitious. This man that works for her literally identifies as unambitious. And that to her is like, what do you mean unambitious? Like, ambitious is the highest value that she holds. And then she realized that guy's not really necessarily unambitious. He's just a single father with 3 kids, and that is his most important priority right now. So he's not willing to sacrifice time and spend extra time at work to get ahead. He just is going to do his job and then go home and serve his kids. And so we have to realize the merit in that unambitiousness or in that humility and not see it as a bad thing, just see it as something different. And that's what that works best for that person at this point in their life. So again, guys, my 3 takeaways. Number 1, don't let your bias contradict your values. A lot of times we react quickly based on the biases that we have, and we say things or do things that are misaligned with our personal values. And we need to make sure that we, essentially with takeaway number 2, create space between stimulus and response. And we do that by pausing or finding vocabulary around pausing in conversations that we're having. Or for me personally, I know I just like to take a good deep breath and almost remember what my mom used to say to me: if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. And then takeaway number 3 is understand the merit of others' values. Somebody who could be really ambitious and another person could really be super humble, where maybe they're not as ambitious, but that's not a bad thing. There's maybe a particular reason why they're doing that. Like, for example, that man that works with Pamela identifies as unambitious, but he's not necessarily unambitious. He's just not looking to get ahead and work right now because he's a single father and he has 3 kids and he has to really devote a lot of time to them. So I hope you guys enjoyed these 3 takeaways from the Pamela Fuller interview. Want to make sure that you go back and listen to it at nickcarrier.com/podcast. You can see it in the recent episodes. Make sure you go grab a copy of the book, The Leader's Guide to Unconscious Bias, and make sure you go learn more about Pamela at franklincovey.com. Make sure you start implementing these things to be a more intelligent communicator and a more intelligently responsive communicator rather than a reactive communicator, so that we can all get closer and closer to your best you.